Philly. I run Open Books, a poem emporium, and we are absolutely delighted to be partnering with Amber to celebrate their incredible new collection and all of the amazing artists that they're having on this tour, virtual tour that they're offering in anticipation of what we're excited about for their in-person event here at the store sometime in the fall. A little background on Open Books. We've been in business for more than 30 years and recently moved to Pioneer Square from our first home in Wallingford. We love in-store visits, we love online customers, and we're happy to see you whenever you come. You can find us online at openpoetrybooks.com or come say hi.
Hello, I'm Roma Ray, and welcome to my bestie, Amber Flame's second installment of series celebrating her new book, Apocrypha. Apocrypha is a love story to conjure up queer, non-gender joy of biblical proportions with a lot of research and acrobatic wordplay. Today, Flame has welcomed her long-term collaborator, Elaina M. Ellis, into the conversation of lovers and beloveds and to discuss writing fictional romance and the healing found in love stories. Elaina is not only a brilliant writer and editor, but co-founder of Generous Press, along with Amber Flame, dedicated to publishing more romance from BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and disabled folks. So without further ado, I now turn it over to Amber Flame and special guest, Elaina M. Ellis.
Hello. Thank you, Roma. Hello, Elaina M. Ellis.
Hi, boo.
I love that you said long-term collaborator. It's long-time collaborator that I wrote.
LTR, LTC.
But it's totally an LTT. What's LTT?
LTC, long-term collaborator.
LTR,
long-term relationship.
LTCR.
LTCR.
Long-term collaborator relationship. Man, we've been doing this a long time. You were literally the genesis starting point of when I was like, I want to do a virtual tour. I want to be in conversation with my smart friends and talk to them about the themes of this book. I knew exactly where I wanted to start. And that like helped me form the little phrase that will guide the tour. You are brilliant. You have pushed me just by being such an excellent writer and editor. You have pushed me to be like really, really amazing, which is what I was for this Apocrypha. And you're thanked in it because, you helped.
I'll pose next to my name in it.
Yes, there it is. Click, click, camera. That's me. It took so much. I keep talking about this because it's true. And I think it's important to make sure that especially Black women get to say this. It took a lot of fucking work to write this book. It's been 9 years since I had the idea in 2014. As you know, my mom died, all those things happened. And to finally be holding it is like, I have to keep remembering for myself as well that like, this is magic is work. To make magic is work. To cast a spell that lasts and has an impact is pretty intentional commitment of time and energy. And so
you work really hard, Amber. I just want to acknowledge that in all ways you work really hard, but you work hard at friendship and you work hard at loving yourself and you work really hard on your creative practices.
Yeah, thank you.
And then you have, like jobs.
A job or three and a child.
But I wasn't even, gonna go there.
Right.
Yeah,
I am trying. No, there is no try. I'm doing less on purpose, as you know, and at the same time doing all the things like co-founding a romance press with my bestie, Elaina. One of my besties, Roma, calm down. It's going to be okay. But yeah, I mean, like, we have built many things, but this is ambitious. Let's talk a little bit about it.
I happen to have our business license right here.
Hey.
It just, you know,
just happens to be right there.
We
gotta
just
get
legit.
you a pretty like ornate gilded frame.
I know, that's what it's meant for. And you too. I think we need to have matching gilded frames.
I think so.
Yeah. But should we tell the people what Generous Press is if they don't know? Generous Press is it's a new publishing project. It's an imprint at Row House Publishing, and Generous exists to publish lush, literary quality, high caliber in every way you can imagine, romance fiction, specifically by our communities, by queer and BIPOC and disabled authors. And I mean, we can, you know, talk about why we're doing this.
Yes, to me, so you were like, hey, want to chat? And I was like, hell yeah. Right. Because we hadn't talked much during the pandemic because you have been really ill.
Deep pandemic.
Yeah. You have been, and you were like, you told me, and then I was like, okay, so I'll get Elaina when I get Elaina. Yeah. You were like, you want to get on the Zoom, I think, the first time. And I thought we were going to just catch up like you do. You always are like, so I got a thought. I've got a project. I'm wondering, when I think of who to build this with, which was such an honor. Thank you. Yeah, you ran it. You ran it for me. And the way you said, you started with talking about the healing that happened for you as you were lying sick, wondering if you would ever be the same again, whether you would ever get your energy back again, which is still a question on the table. And I'm realizing I'm telling your business. I'll stop telling all your business. But like, this is like part of our founding story, I feel, for Generous Press. Start from there. Tell me what you told me, which is...
Yeah, right. So I what Amber is referencing is that I have long COVID. And at the, early, I got sick the dawn of the pandemic, didn't know what was happening, didn't know why I wasn't getting better. And now there's much more conversation and research going on about long COVID. But I just developed really severe chronic illness, the most incredible fatigue and chronic pain I've ever, the kind I couldn't have even like conceived of before. And pretty life-changing. And there was a while there where it wasn't even that I couldn't like physically exert or, but my body couldn't handle like any bounce and stress would make me sicker.
Oh.
And so I was becoming an expert at like, well, what can I do that brings my nervous system down? What can I do and also what can I do that brings me some like joy while I'm like laying still? So all of those things are happening. And I started reading contemporary romance novels for the first time. And it actually started with somebody gave my partner one of Stacey K. Abrams' novels. But then I got curious about what else was out there. So I started reading contemporary queer romance novels. And I think what I told you was just like, the comfort it brought me, but also, I found books where the protagonists were dealing with chronic illness and disability and were being loved, cared for. Like there's a scene in a Talia Hibbert book where the protagonist has, I think, fibromyalgia and other diseases. And there's this like really romantic scene where the partner is like, has devised something that makes it so that she doesn't have to remove the top of a can herself, because it's hard for her joints. Just like the details of that. And I it just sort of unlocked this thing for me where it's like, oh, romance is this space where like people write the parts of themselves that they might believe are hard to love, and then write the act of that part of themselves being like focused on, adored, tended to, healed, and then there's sex.
Which is also great.
It was a delight to discover that there are queer romance authors writing queer sex that I could, enjoy and relate to. Yeah. But not enough of it, And
right.
And then the other piece is that I had just spent a decade working in poetry book publishing at Copper Canyon. And so, I have a passion for publishing, but it was like, what if I was publishing books that are just like fun, just or like about joy. Like, what if that was my work for a while?
Yeah.
Whatever a while means, you know? So yeah, I just started daydreaming about it. And I really, like, as soon as I was like, I actually don't think I'm interested in doing this alone, who would I want to work with? You were like, boop, you rose right into my
prom date.
Yeah.
Forever prom date.
Yeah.
I am, yes, once again, fucking totally honored. And you also said, you know, imagine if your favorite poet or your favorite author wrote a romance, like wrote their first romance for us. And that is a dream that I will continue to cling to. Like, I'm really very excited about emerging romance writers who are like our family. Like, this is going to be super cool. We are putting out an anthology for our first book next year. So, and we are accepting novel proposals and novel manuscripts for review, because we will be putting out another book 2024 too, like late 2024 fall is the plan for that one. So spring and fall there will be our first releases.
We're ready for your manuscripts.
Bring it on. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to clip that. What I love also is that you being, I'm going to come back to Gemini, because when I think of like every Gemini friend I've made since you or Gemini person I brought into my life, like you have been my metric in some way, because you taught me so much about why there's such a sparkle between me and Geminis. Like, I love Geminis, and I know people don't always love Geminis, but I fucking love them, like, because they make me think and they make me work, and they make me work to be. I never want to bore a Gemini, because I know that's like the death. That's a death knell is when they're like, I'm bored, or I've heard this before, and you're repeating yourself. You know, like that's just no go. So it keeps me on my toes in a really invigorating way. I want to talk to you about language, common language and individual language. We'll talk more about generous press as well, but like, I really love that you put it forward and you already were like, here's the stats, yo. So on the one side, you were like this beautiful, emotive, experiential story of like why you want to be in this work and like how it is mission aligned for you. Next to like the facts are romance is a booming business, especially during the pandemic. It was a booming business. People are hungry for romance stories, as is exhibited by our plethora of reality TV shows around finding love, which we will also be talking about. And then the stats of like who's writing the people of color characters, who's writing the disabled characters, who's writing the queer characters. It's still very much cis white males, and so like, and cis white females, like that's what's happening right now, and we can shift that. And you know, our parent publisher, Row House Press, is like, hell yeah, you can shift it. We're for it, and that's their mission aligned work as well. So it felt really like, yeah, it was as soon as you talked to me about it, it was like synchronicity moments happening, like just like where we'd see a post and be sending it to each other of like, see, they were just posting about this or stats about that or whatever, like, and on both sides. And it feels very whole, because it's you do what not all artists can do, which is like make a plan and follow it through. And I can
That's my Capricorn rising.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know what that is with
is.
me. I think it's just an Aries who's like, I'm going to push this all the way to the end.
Yeah.
I don't know, or Scorpio conning, long con. I don't know, but I have it, and I recognize it as like a fortunate.
Well,
like,
fire. I mean, fire is a fuel.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
It's in your name and it's in your chart. How gay are we, everyone?
Capricorn rising. That makes so much fucking sense.
It's like my chart is almost all air. And then my rising sign's Capricorn, which is mountain goat. And I did sometimes picture this little mountain goat, like on the, you know, they can like just climb a cliff almost horizontally. And it's just like,
hold on by their fucking teeth. Yeah. Just
and it's like, this, I'm going to carry this like wild, airy, windy weirdo. I'm going to just carry her all the way up. Like, carry it. And I'm like, wee.
Yeah. Woo. Watch me rise. That's awesome. It works. It's working. So yeah, I mean, I think that's I want to get back to the magic of it, because we're going to talk a little bit about love on a personal level, but like, there's something really, when you find somebody And this is true for like the people that are close to my circle right now. When you find somebody who like the communication, I was thinking about our conversation just a few days ago. Sorry, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about with you. So I hope you'll go with me on this one.
Yeah.
And I was telling you about this essay that I'm trying to write, right? And I was thinking about, after I finished kind of laying out like the sort of pieces that are swirling in my brain, you kind of said, send me that essay when you're done. I'd love to see it. And I remember shortly after our call was over, I had this like ping of regret that I didn't ask you to kind of reflect back to me what you heard me saying or talking about. Like that would have been really helpful in writing this essay. And it would have been really helpful in like making sure that our communication is mutual, is really like that I'm not just talking to you and you're not just talking to me, but that we're making sure that we're actually, I talk about my mom's dissertation, this idea of common language versus individual language. This is where I'm going tangentially, circling back, just like my mom used to do all the time. I'm becoming my mom in my old age. It's fine. Love you, Margaret. But her dissertation is all about like, when you say something, do I understand what you mean? And I grew up with those kind of like logic questions and philosophical debates, essentially. And that was my first big editing project, was her dissertation.
Whoa, I didn't know.
I like fluffed and edited the shit out of her dissertation, and in my like early 20s, probably right around when we met, actually. Yeah, because I was a Zorn. Getting up at like in the butt crack of dawn, because she'd be like, I sent another chapter, and it was like to the deadline as a Libra, like after 15 years of school. But like I keep coming back more and more to, am I being understood? Am I understanding? And I think what I came to is like this line kept percolating around this essay where I was like saying, I'm falling in love. And it's like, I'm also like experiencing the worst acne of my life, and I'm on birth control, not because I'm trying to control birth, but because I'm trying to control my uterus, after a failed ablation. And I'm trying to lose weight for a new knee because I need a new knee. And, but I'm falling in love. And the more I like how my brain works, the more I want to make sure that when I'm talking to people, that I'm understood, and that I'm hearing them, that I'm truly hearing them. I'm wanting to slow down, which is really cool.
Well, can I jump in for a second?
Yes, please. Exactly.
It's so cool that you're like, everything you're saying really resonates with the way this book took shape. Because I've also known you as a poet for our almost 20 years, as we were just talking about. And there's a slowing down, like the pace of the poetry is slower. The word, there's more white space and sort of sparseness in the work. And then there's this like reciprocal, it's a conversation book. There's this call and response and like reciprocal dialogue within your own, right? Like you're creating that on your own page. But then it's also kind of a puzzle, like the way the form of the poems will be like, you could read them this way, or you could read them this way. So it's like, there's a little bit of question everywhere of, are we hearing each other, or am I reading it right? Or, like you kind of coded all that into the book.
Wow, way to tie that together. I did that on purpose. And yet I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm trying to do that.
Yeah.
Word. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, and that is I love that you're talking about that in the context of self-love and friendship, friend love, and then creative work, like all of that being about deeper and deeper levels of clarifying communication
and making sure that you understand what I mean more than hear what I say. Yeah. thank you for bringing up the friendship thing too, because I had this moment at the Northwest Folklife Festival where where Roma was reading a poem that she wrote about me, and it's like a best friend love poem. And I had this moment, like, seriously, it was such a bright flash. That's why I keep bringing it up. It's like, holy shit, I'm the beloved of my best friend. Like, my best friend's holding me as a beloved right now. That's somebody going over the speed bump really fast in front of me.
Wow.
Choices
I was like, Roma?
Roma, right, the thunder club. No. Yeah, I just had this, like, it was such a brilliant flash in my mind of like, oh, I do know what it means to be held in this way. Because I think as I started to like try to plan how I was going to present this work and like truly bring it out into the world, I started going, do I even understand what it means to be the beloved? For me, that it became really apparent. And I started asking this question of people because I was trying to like almost understand this character that I had written, but also understand it in me. And it's this idea of like, in most relationships, people tend to be more comfortable in the role of the lover or the beloved. And there's a certain way that I've kind of defined them in the book. So the idea of the lover is somebody who is sort of the seeker, is somebody who, you know, pursues. They are somebody who wants to explore the world. They love the world, right? They love the wide world. And they found this person. And there's an intense attraction, intense draw, and it's wonderful. And it's everything that the lover wants, but the lover doesn't not love the whole wide world still. Very Sagittarius, I think. And so the beloved, like, I understand that. I understand I thought I was more of a lover type. Let me put it that way. Whereas the beloved is somebody who is like really comfortable and at home in themselves, in the life, in the world, in the house, in the home that they've created, and is very comfortable with their familiar paths. And so they're not seeking. And it's, you know, it's interesting as the book continues, and this has come up in every conversation of like, there's this flow between like power that is happening, or this conception of power that you have to like, not conception, perception of power that you have to like set down in order to really truly figure out, do I understand what you mean? You know, can I come back? Can I return? Will this work? But there's also like, I think I was really stuck up until very recently with this idea that you're one or the other, and that I've always been a lover, and what would it mean to try to become a beloved? And now with every conversation, there's something that just opens. So I'm going to ask you the question: do you tend to be the lover or the beloved in relationships? And how do you experience that shifting and changing as you're in a long-term committed relationship? A different kind of LTCR. I'll show you the Heather for now. But yeah, tell me about it. How do you feel? How do you identify?
It's so funny because I know we talking about this question, and but as you're saying it, I'm like, you know already, you know the answer. You can answer this question. But I mean, like when we were first friends, that period of my life, I was absolutely the lover character, as you've written the lover character, and that I was like, I need freedom, I need to not be held down too much, I need to be. The interesting thing is, though, even the words, like the word, because what I was I need to go away and you need to adore me.
Stay here and wait for me
from a distance.
Stay here, wait for me, and look at me adoringly from over
like
here.
I was like, I might need an open relationship. I might need to travel all the time. I might need to never move in with you. Like I was doing that kind of stuff. And now I'm like, oh, that was a developmental stage I needed to go through to like basically run away from home in a way I wasn't didn't have the capacity to do when I was young, but sort of maybe could have, should have. So I needed to practice like pushing people away. That was part of it. Push you away. Do you still love me? That was part of it.
Best.
Eventually there were some painful lessons there, because I got that for a while, and then people were like, ouch, you've been pushing me for a couple of years now, I gotta go. And I'd be like, what? And then, but the other part was more of a legitimate, like, I love the world in this way that feels expansive and alive, and this fear of losing that, so that I relate to that character in your book in that way. But I'm also now like so deeply domesticated and I love it, like, not in a bad way, but I just am like so home oriented. I've come very deeply into the fact that I'm an introvert. I love monogamy, you know, like I think a lot of that was maturity and realizing I really also like calm and serenity. There's some things I like that the path to get them turns out has been more of a commitment path, and a going deep with someone over time, and a going deep with a place over time, and all these things. So kind of a,
there you go, making me think. Now I'm like, place, the beloved as place too. Like, what does it mean? And then I'm thinking elements now. Jeez, okay. Not surprisingly, I'm like, oh, that hasn't come up before. Like, let me think about place. It's so cool to, if I do say so myself, it's so cool to have like my work revealing questions and things to me as I'm talking to other people about it. I'm like, oh snap, that is in there. And I wonder how much of it, like, I was in such a bad place. I was in such a bad way in so many ways. Physically, definitely emotionally. I was in such dark grief. And I think I told you this, you know, like, I feel like sometime last summer, probably around this time when I went into whites and started that journey, it began to be like the grief fog started dissolving for me. And I look back on like 8-year chunk of my life, and it's just sort of gray and foggy. And I'm glad I journaled and stuff like that through it, because I can't, in a way that like my 20s, there's some crystal clear, like I can remember when we went on a date, right? Like I remember the street we walked down. There's times when I drive by it and I'm like, this is cute. You know, like I remember where you live, you know, like I remember meeting you, all those things, like there's so much of it that was very crystal clear. And then came 34 and my mom died. And so, while things emerge from it, it's very shadowy, it's very ghostly and haunted. And I'm feeling a sort of like the world is so bright now. Over this last year, it's gotten brighter and brighter, and it feels there's so many pieces to that we could talk about forever. And this is not therapy, so we won't do that right now. But like, we'll circle back. Isn't it? Isn't it though? I mean, yeah, like this. But that's one of the things is like, I think I remember when I had a chart reading with one of my favorite astrologers, Anne Ortley, and she was like, you have these two sides of you. You have this like Scorpio need to, like, your Scorpio moon wants you to commit and be in a relationship and like do the thing. And your Aries sun is like, but I could fly. But what if you clip my wings? You know, like wants to be free all the time. And I was like, that's so funny, because I'm about to publish a book that has those two parts of me as two characters. So there's been this sort of like, there's been that, but there's also been a like deep need, what I've seen with you that I'm examining as a question, because here I am in a house that I bought to live in with a partner, that I bought to renovate and remodel and landscape and paint and do all the things with a partner. It's very large. It's just me and the kid bumping around this big old house with extra space, you know, like and it's such a privilege. It's such a blessing. It's such a gift. Yay, we have this space. Yay, we made it through the pandemic. All of those things. Yes. And like, I remember when I went to your house and I was like, this is partnership. And there is right now, I don't know if it's healing, but I'm just curious. This is the curious question in me, is like, did I ever really want that? Did I ever fully want that. Maybe like a part of me, the Scorpio moon part of me wants that and wants to build. But I'm like, I need like a condo. Like, I need a home right now. I need a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, motherfucking simple ass, free flow, small space with a housekeeper. That's what I need. You know what I mean? Like, and so thinking about like, and also there's this drive to like reclaim this experience for myself, and it always somehow circles back to like, but I don't want to do this by myself. Like, and so now I'm like asking friends and hiring people and using my resources and stuff like that, to be my own beloved and to give myself, right? And that's okay. That's good. It's good work. It feels like good practice. And so, but it's got me wondering, like, is there a long term? Like, does everybody get to a point where they're kind of like, I'm here. I'm settled in whatever it is. I'm settled in flying and returning. I'm settled in remaining and believing.
Well, you know, not to go there, but we both have a Buddhist practice. Yes. and like there, you know, the reason I'm attracted to that set of wisdoms is actually largely about impermanence and because also that I came to that when I was really sick, and it was like basically like help me accept that everything I understand about myself is no longer reliable in this moment. So when you say like, is there a long term, is like, you know, I was at a point where I was like, well, my body doesn't work anymore. I can't control anything about the way I look right now. I don't have a sexuality right now because I can't access that physically. My job, things about that were imploding. And then I eventually left my job. I was not producing creatively. I mean, I didn't have the energy to be social, just like every category, right? I was like, who am I? What am I? So let me have a spiritual practice. So that's taking that question all the way to the extreme of like, of course, everything is always changing, like every single moment. And so there's no settling in to like, this is what I am or where I'll be for the rest of my life, because we just don't know. You know, so there's that. And there's like the other thing that comes up for me is this. I'm going to hype a self-help book right now.
Yes, come on, do it.
This book, how to be an adult in relationships. I bought that when I was really
just writing this down right quick.
Needing that title, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. But his framework it's a very like deep book, but the sort of simplified framework is that he defines love, which I really needed at one point, and I think is really interesting in terms of what we're doing of like looking at fictional writing about love. And because I got to a point where I was like, well, what even is being loved or loving? Because I've done a bunch of things that maybe weren't that, it turns out. You know, I just sort of hit a wall where I was like, what is it even? And he says love is 5 A's. It's attention, which to me is sort of related to like the deep kind of attention you were talking about of, am I actually heard? Do we actually get each other? Like and I specifically see you. I don't just see you as in relationship to me, and like, who are you in your own, you know, so attention, affection, something.
The other 3, 5.
Okay, but the last one is allowing, and it's all about allowing freedom.
Ooh.
And I feel like what makes me feel like I get to a point where I can feel semi-permanent in a relationship, like in my current relationship and in my house, about a house, and in Bellingham where I live, is this, if I get to a point where I'm like, I can commit to this because I feel like it gives me freedom to change within it. You know what I mean? Like the relationship I'm in, I feel like there's You're just allowed. Like I'm allowed. And and she's inspired by my changing and growing, you know, and not just inspired in like, you know, you can be like objectified as a
inspirational source.
Yes. But that sort of crystallizes you where you are right now, as opposed to being like, whoa, I'm so fascinated to see like Amber, seriously, I am so fascinated to see like the trajectory you're on right now, you know? And that is like this kind of love that's like, so feels so much more.
It's like lean in to you.
Yeah.
Not a amplification of something perceived once or perceived in this moment, and then like you said, crystallized as the thing. Yeah. I dig that, allowing.
And there's like, because I've read now so many romance novels to understand this genre that we're moving into as publishers.
Yeah.
There are all these tropes where somebody's like, but no, I can't be tied down. I can't commit because I was hurt, or because I have hurt someone, so I'm not safe, or
guilt, shame,
you know, whatever, or because guilt, exactly, and trauma, and then, you know, it's a formula that guarantees us a happy ending. Like that is what defines a romance novel. But the ones that I'm loving and the ones we're wanting to read are the ones where it's really more like a hint towards a happiness that can be possible because they found the person who like can love them in all those expansive ways, you know, and they can go off and change together.
So thank you for that pivot, actually, because I do want to talk about like the books that were when I think romance novels, I always 100% go to my grandmother's Harlequin romances, right? The like very, very formulaic. Like when we cleared out her house, she had, when I say hundreds, my aunt started gathering, like she gathered general, you know, the contractor bags full of these things. My grandmother was also a little bit of a hoarder, it turned out, when we went to clean out her house. So she was like, I have dropped off 20 of these bags at the local libraries and I can't do it anymore. So they're going to the dump. Like there were so many, because she spent 40, 50, 60 years reading them. And she was a fast reader. She'd sit there and crochet and read. And I don't know how she did both at the same time, but that was my grandmother.
That's amazing.
And I remember sneaking them. So here I am, a church kid. We're going to see our non-Christian family. Like, so my mom's arguing with her sisters in the kitchen about Jesus, right? Not really arguing, more like staying up forever. And I'm like sneaking my grandmother's Harlequin romances to get off because like there's no kind of anything like that in our house. I remember getting, maybe it was from the public library, and it was called Wicked Lies. And it was like hot pink. So this is like when I was like maybe 12, 13 by this time. And it was hot pink, and somebody was like, what are you reading? And I was like, oh, it's Weird Lies. Like I'm trying to like disguise the fact. And some of these stories, these moments are so, like I said, they're crystal clear memories for me, because they were like, I remember standing in the grocery store aisle, picking up the books and like flipping to the sex scenes as fast as I could, because it was like, it fed something in me that was very, you know, this book is inspired by Song of Songs in the Bible, because that was erotic. That was like my first introduction to the tension that can happen in wordplay between two characters where the reader experiences arousal. It's not like it's not the like, and then he puts his, you know, like it's not the moment of impact. It's that like arrival to that moment, or the ripping of the bodice is so much sexier than what comes after. You know what I mean? Like there's that moment of like, whoo, you know, the shiver moment. And I'm excited to read the shiver moments. We've seen some great stuff coming in with that shiver moment. But I think I want you to talk a little bit, because you are getting more and more versed in what this like formula looks like. And I want you to talk about the formula, the general framework of romance stories. Like you said, the number one thing is that it ends happens like they end up together. That's how romance novels end. Even at the last minute, bursts the door bursts open and there she is, you know, something, right?
And they say, it's always been you.
It's always been you. It was, oh my God, Mal. I was always going to choose. Oh, have you seen the meme? Did you see the meme where it's like her saying, I was always going to choose you? And it says me to my magic wand out of my big box of sex toys. I was like, absolutely. I was always going to choose you. So yeah, talk about the framework. Talk about like what don't people know about writing romance fiction that is the formula, and then your framework that you've been developing for Generous Press specifically around consent, healing, growth, trauma, all that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely still a student of the genre, but I love, and you and I have talked about this, that it's like you know, we're both poets and we work with received form, which you do a lot of in this book, where you're pouring your words, your ideas into a form that already exists. And that form then like gives you tensions to work with. And I like the idea that genre fiction is just one big form. And so we're wanting people who are like beautiful writers. There's such a range of types of prose in romance. And just like some people want to watch like a Hallmark movie or whatever, an HGTV show, and some people want to watch like an Oscar-winning movie. Like we're trying to like move our romance style like a little bit further towards that like really gorgeous kind of cinematic,
more the Notebook, and
more
less,
the Notebook,
like,
more like Moonlight, or like,
oh my God, right, yeah,
you
something
know,
like the classics, like the ones that go down as like Sleepless in Seattle, you know, oh my God, I love that movie so much. The Princess Bride, you know, like there, but like right there, we've just named 4 very, very different kind of movies,
right? Yeah,
but the formula remains. The form,
there's a feeling of like quality to it, but the form, you know, there's a they meet. There's a zillion tropes, but a really common trope is they meet, they don't get along, or they met a long time ago and they became enemies somewhere along the way, and now they like they have forced proximity. If you think about when Harry met Sally, they're sharing a ride from Chicago to New York, so they're stuck in the car together, and she's like, oh my God, I'm stuck with this asshole, and he's like, oh my God, I'm stuck with this prude or whatever. And like, so enemies to lovers is a big trope. Friends to lovers, you know, we're hanging out, but the tension is like, no, but I couldn't with her. She's just my friend, you know, this kind of thing. Like, why am I noticing her biceps? We're really just, we're like family. So there's some sort of like, they meet and that's cute, but there's also some sort of immediate like, but they can't usually. And then, and then there's a real range of like how long is our runway, right? Like, do we have tension all the way through most of the book and then eventually they get together towards the end, or is there like on and off and many cycles of conflict? There's usually a third act breakup or crisis in the relationship. So we've gone through the arc, they've gotten together, but then you're like, but I've still got like a fourth of the book left. Like
this isn't happily ever after.
So something terrible is going to happen. Often it's like, oh my God, we fell in love and it was great, but then I found out what you said about me back in Act 1 when we hated each other. I found that journal entry, or overheard you talking to a friend and saying you didn't really love me, but you were actually saying whatever. You
did it as a bet or something. Yeah.
And and that hits on whatever insecurity, you know, my character, like, I'm like, oh my God, now I found out the truth that you really do think I'm a flighty Gemini, whatever. And then you're like, no, I don't. I think you're really smart. And I'm like, okay, good. And then we get back together.
Right. That works out. Okay.
You know, I mean, the truth is we actually know, we all know. It's kind of a cool, we all actually know the formula because it's so fundamental to the way we tell stories. Like telling love stories is really fundamental, I think, to like humans. We tell our own love stories. We just told it of our friendship. Like, this is how we met, and then this happened, and then, you know, And yeah, what we've talked about is we want these stories, we want them buy-in for diverse people who've been historically marginalized, like parts of our identities have been historically cut out of the love stories that are shown or published in the world. So BIPOC, queer, and disabled stories. And then we want, there's Colleen Hoover is like one of the best-selling authors in the country right now, maybe the world, I don't know. And there's been a lot of conversation about scenes in her books that they're romance, stories, but that there are these scenes that are depicting rape or triggering, non-consensual scenes, basically, where like a man has power over a woman, and people have been like, is this really what we want to read in romance? Like, why are we romanticizing this? Why are we sexualizing this? A man like closing a door and forcing a woman to stay in the room with him, this kind of thing. And so part of our idea for this anthology that we're going to publish for our first book at Generous Press, a short story anthology, is, you and I talked about, like, what if we could just really get a bunch of brilliant writers to give us stories that depict generous consent, and not necessarily just sexually, but like, what does it look like for two people to arrive? Actually, so related to what we've been talking about this whole conversation, like, what does it look like for two people to actually listen to each other, to actually be reciprocal, to actually see each other, and for that to be romantic, and for readers to be able to read those stories and, like, over time use that as a kind of healing balm for all of the gross, abusive content and experiences that many of us have taken in and been through. So and I don't know, what would you add to that? I know we're maybe winding down here, but
we are winding down, but I did want to say, you're making me think, of course, about so many things, but I'm thinking about how, like, I'm thinking about the healing part of it. And I'm thinking about Ultimatum, the queer edition, and how, like a good example is Aussie and Sam. And somebody posted about this, saying, like, after watching, I was about to call one of my exes and be like, Aussie ain't got nothing on you. It was just so, like, it's so wild to watch, as I told you, these almost archetypical queer things occur in this reality TV show. And, like, it was wild. It's like watching Sam start to speak up for herself. It's so what I was thinking about was how a lot of times when I'm watching something like that, or I'm reading something like that, and particularly in any situation where the beloved or somebody, the one kind of in that role, starts demanding things, or starts to be like, that's not okay with me, you need to do better, and, like, really calls people out, I'm super uncomfortable and often really critical of that person in my head, of like, wow, take it easy, you need to like they're like, no, that's not okay, now you need to make it up to me. And I was like, bitch, calm down, because I had this moment of, like, how many times do I just, no, it's fine, no, it's okay, no, it's fine, no, it's okay. And how we chisel away at our own expectations of somebody so that they don't disappoint us, right? Instead of being like, you disappointed me. I remember dating Sarah and having her say, like, basically, when you said you'd never been so disappointed in your life, like, that was it for me. I was like, we're done. And I'm like, so you, instead of thinking of it as something that you would rise to the occasion and be like, oh, loved it, and then I started fucking up, let me change my behavior, you're like, no, I can't deal with the recrimination of you being disappointed in me. It's like, there's not a do, but there's something that I'm really excited about around this, around exploring, like, through the lens of the consent, what does it mean to be like, no, you will not be keeping me in this room? Like, what happens when that is its own agent for, like, arousal even, you know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
that becomes like
Uh-huh.
sexy, where you're like, oh, you're
Yeah.
going to demand the love, the respect, the allowance, the
Mhm.
appreciation, the other 3 A's.
Oh my gosh. It's
those 5 A's.
acceptance
Mm-hmm.
and something else. Anyway, come on.
Yeah, read the
got
book.
4 of
It's How to Be an Adult in Relationships. It's apparently really, really great and will stick with you. But yes, if you are writing romance, if you're thinking about writing romance, start with a short story, start with flash fiction. And keep us in mind, Generous Press is happening, and it's going to be a beautiful love story of an organization, just like our friendship has been. Thank you, Elaina.
Thank you, Amber. Congratulations on your gorgeous
Hey.
book and being a just talented, incredible poet while launching whole, business babies and running other businesses and raising the child and being a good person. Congratulations on all that.
Thank you. I'm glad you like me. You really like me.
I do. I like you and I like your poems.
Thanks. Thank you. That really means a lot because I value your opinion quite a bit. All right, I'm going to bring Roma back in to take us out, but thank you so much. And I know we will continue this conversation and or evolve this conversation in a million different ways. And I'm excited for that too. Thank you, boo.
Thank you. Love you.
That was Amber Flame and Elaina Ellis. These talks can be found on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, be sure to check out the next installment in the series coming soon. Again, thank you, Flame. Thank you, Elaina. What a great way to spend the afternoon. I'm already looking forward to the next time we gather for another joy-finding conversation, and I hope you are too. Until then, friends, happy Pride and make good choices.